Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Sorry about the delay. I've been busy with real life stuff. Let's watch the Oz video. A lot of people said I really needed to watch the Oz video to see a lot of the potential financial abuse that Oz went through and all the stuff he's been suffering, and that I shouldn't have glossed over it. All right, something you guys need to keep in mind. I'm a reaction channel. I don't do deep dives. I'm not going to go through all the Google Drives. I do not follow Twitter stuff. I don't go through all the Discords. I just don't care. I'm watching it and I'm going to react to the video in front of me. I don't even go and pre-record videos so I know, or not re-record. I make sure not to watch anything about the video, no other reactions, in advance so it doesn't muddy the waters. And that's something I should probably have told you guys in the beginning, because I'm not like the normal channels that discuss this stuff endlessly. I'm going to be behind when I react on this stuff. Example, I'm about a year behind on this video. Not quite, this is probably 6 months. But anyway, that's the only disclaimer I'm going to have for this. And I'll probably have to mention that a couple times when I do other things. Like, for instance, I'm probably going to look at the Mama Mac stuff. But I don't do deep dives, so keep that in mind. So when you're in my comment sections yelling at me about some random Twitter thread or something that was found in the Discord, if it's not in a video I'm watching or have seen before, then I will have no idea what you're talking about. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get into the Oz. I like the Oz setup here. It's actually pretty cool. Nice and simplified. Looks great. And I don't know, it's just great.
Howdy everyone, I'm Oz, in the flesh. No cartoon avatar this time. I'm making this because I'm giving an update to both—
Real quick, that thing in front of everyone's microphone, does that keep me from echoing? Should I get one of those? I know this is a serious video, but I keep seeing those and everyone has one, so maybe I should get one. Anyway, but let's listen to what Oz has to say.
Both my regular viewers and those who are here for something a bit more specific. To my regular viewers first, I hope this video can help explain where I've been over the last 3 years. For those who are here—
Okay, so Oz, it's 3 years ago from this video, stopped basically posting on his main channel, which basically made it so he lost all his income from his main channel, which I believe at the time had over 500,000 subscribers. So he basically went straight from his channel, which was probably still making a decent chunk of money, to nothing on the channel. Well, I guess he probably still had residual income, because even if I don't do anything for days, I still get a little bit of residual income. He was probably still making a few $100 a month, I would say, even without uploading. But, you know, I can't guarantee that. And then he went straight working for Blair and all of her dumb ventures. I guess there's candle making company, there's the crypto farm, obviously her channel, and she had a bunch of channels too, so there's that.
Here for the Illuminati drama, I do have some news, and I'm making this video for full transparency, as I believe this is important in a situation like this. First and foremost, I need to make everyone aware, for reasons that I hope this update will make clear, for my safety, I need to put a short and temporary pause on production of my video on Illuminaughtii. The video—
Okay, so this isn't the Illuminaughtii video that he made. I guess there's a bigger one?
will still, of course, be produced. I just need to put things on a lower burn and return to regular content for the time being, for many reasons. Some of them being the honest truth that I can't afford to continue at this rate, both fiscally and physically. Illuminaughtii has taken this to a legal front, using the courts because of how poorly things went for her on the internet.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the court of public opinion is brutal, but it's not the same as a real court.
As a reminder, for those of you unaware, Illuminaughtii started a fight with a lawyer on Twitter, accused him of copying her style, which then led to other content creators and past collaborators speaking out about their past interactions with her.
Yeah, that was a train wreck and a half.
Illuminaughtii is the one who took this off of Twitter and brought it onto YouTube, where she would then post a—
I'm still debating on whether or not I even want to bother with this video. A lot of people want me to watch it, but I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'll decide based off this video's response.
suicide note of one of her former employees for the world to see as an attempted own. Now, full transparency, I was one of the creators who spoke out against her, despite the fears and hesitations that I had. I've put a lot of things in my life on hold to produce this video, ending up with nearly 110 pages.
Jeez. Okay, so this video is massive that Oz is working on. I'll say, okay.
Of a manuscript which details as much of what I can. And let me tell you something. Converting...
Oh, dear God. This only half. Well, at least they're a way better editor than I am.
This monstrosity into a video with its accompanying 1,000 screenshots.
Jeez, you know what? If anything, I would see Blair doing everything in her literal power to make sure this video never sees the light of day. Even buying Oz off would be a possibility at this point.
Shots has been one hell of a monumental task for me, a one-person team to embark on. I want to get everything right, or more of I need to, and I need to ensure that everyone's stories are factual. But to do so, I need to pump the brakes and not rush this out for the sake of being able to not stress about my next meal, or my next bill for that matter. Because of this, I need to, and more importantly, I want to, continue my regular content so I can afford to live day to day. There is another factor to all of this, a factor which Illuminaughtii has caused, or as I will be calling her throughout this video, Blair. For full transparency, which will be explored more in my future video, Blair and I dated. We were a couple for a decent chunk of time. This puts me in an ungodly complicated situation of doing everything that I can to try and...
Okay, so I guess this was where Oz originally confirmed that he was dating Blair at the time. I've seen a lot of different videos that had this information in it, but this was the first time I guess it was confirmed.
And separate the relationship drama from the public drama, as in the process of dating her, there are a lot of things which I bore witness to. Before anything else, I want to firmly state that this update is being made with the understanding that there is a likelihood that this will end up in a courtroom. I say this because things have been escalating quite a bit behind the scenes.
I wonder, I wonder if one-party consent laws fall into play here. Now, obviously, Colorado is a one-party consent state, but I don't know if a lot of this video would still be valid in the courtroom. Some of it might be, but I mean, it may not be actionable like in the household type stuff.
And the stress has certainly been rising. What I can only describe as retaliation from the person who's my ex, former employer, and prior colleague, Blair is in the process of currently foreclosing my home.
How could she force a foreclosure on a home? Okay, so she lent Oz money, right? The $180K or whatever he said that he owed her. And she created a loan, I guess, or basically a contract with another lawyer, right? And basically it's forcing him to pay that back. But how would that work? How could she force a foreclosure? There's not many ways I can think of. The only real way you could force a foreclosure is with a deed of trust. But the deed of trust it wouldn't be from... She couldn't force the foreclosure. Because what people don't realize is a mortgage and a mortgagee are two completely different type of things. So, for instance, when you get a mortgage from a bank, right? But with a deed of trust, it's a three-way party system. So, for instance, Blair would be the lender, Oz would be the borrower, obviously, and then there would be a trustee, which is usually the title company, or it could be a real estate company. Okay, if you're still following me here, Blair could not force the foreclosure. Only the trustee could. And the trustee has to give Oz 90 days to do that. After that, it's not just a normal foreclosure either. It's a quick foreclosure, which automatically forces it into a sale. And what would happen is the house would be sold. Blair would be paid back her $180K or whatever the heck the loan was, and Oz would get the rest of the money. So it's not like he'd be completely broke. So there's something wrong here. This doesn't make sense. She couldn't force a foreclosure. I don't know of any other way to do it besides a deed of trust. And a deed of trust does not allow the lender to force the foreclosure. Only the third party can force it, and they're the ones that are basically controlling it. Blair just fronts the money. Only the trustee can force the foreclosure. And there's a 90-day window, which allows him to cure it, which freezes it, and then it allows for a renegotiation of the loan terms. And most trustees don't want to force a foreclosure. Even if Blair had wanted to, basically it's an automatic process in most cases. Only the trustee can really force it. So there's something wrong here. All right, well, let's keep going.
Because of this stress of Blair taking my home from me, I need to pump the brakes and change directions so I won't be homeless come Christmas. Because that's when Blair set my home to foreclose.
No, she didn't. She can't. If this is a deed of trust, she can't set the date of foreclosure. Only the trustee can, and she can't be the trustee. It has to be like a third-party company. It can't be another person either. Like the bank could, in theory, be the trustee, but it's most likely the title company is how it works. Because what happens is he actually doesn't lose the title. Well, okay, so Blair would get the legal title, right? But he would also get an equitable title. So over 10 years, let's say the equity increased in the house, only his title would gain equity. Blair's would not. It's locked in at the current rate of when the loan was taken out. So that's completely irrelevant. But the only one who can force the foreclosure would be the trustee, whoever that happens to be in this case. But it couldn't be Blair. Which means what happened, and the only way this happens, by the way, is if he misses a payment. Once he misses a payment, the trustee can force the 90 days to start. Basically, he gets a notice of 90 days to basically pay his what he's missing for it, and then as well as a small fee. It's usually a small fee. I think like 3% of what's owed, or maybe up to 15%. It depends on the state, but for the most part. But either way, there's no way Blair could force the foreclosure. So either he doesn't understand how a deed of trust works, or no one understands how a deed of trust works except for that lawyer. Basically, a deed of trust is a safer way for someone to lend someone money when a bank refuses to lend money, because it's a safety net for Blair. Because, if Oz defaults on the loan, it forces the sale of the house. Yes, Blair gets her money back instantly from the sale of the house, but if there's any money left over, Oz gets the rest of that. And that's assuming he had enough equity in the house. He probably didn't, which is the whole different problem. But basically what happens at that point is the lender actually just loses money. So it's actually in the best interest of the lender to renegotiate the loan at the 90-day mark, which is generally what happens. Because what happens is Blair would just lose money if there's not enough equity in the house. So, for instance, let's say the house was $480,000, right, when Oz bought it. The upside is he probably bought it in 2020, which means 2021, 2022, when this was happening, was the height of kind of COVID, and COVID prices were stupid high, so his house may have been worth $600,000, but let's say for some dumb reason it was still worth $480,000. All right, he probably had we'll say whatever his down payment was, which was between 7% and 20%. So you're looking at $35,000 to ideally $100,000 would be ideal of equity in the house already, plus his monthly payments, right? So we'll say $125,000. We'll say if we're lucky, okay, that he had in equity, and he didn't do a 7% down one, right? So that would put him at basically, if Blair had not allowed a renegotiation of the terms, because the trustee generally wants the loan paid off. They don't want to force a sale. They would have normally renegotiated the loan probably around the 80-day mark is generally how it works for a deed of trust in a lot of ways. Deed of trust, by the way, isn't just for houses. You can use a deed of trust for anything. But they probably would have renegotiated it down, right? Because the problem here is if they forced the sale, then Blair would have lost potentially 50 grand just outright. And she probably couldn't get it back from Oz, because Oz at that point would just declare bankruptcy and then be off the hook in a lot of ways. Sure, it would screw up his credit score for 7 to 10 years, but the reality is there's probably no way he could pay it back. So if anyone's losing on this one, it would be Blair if she refused to renegotiate the loan term, which she could do, but she can't force the sale, which is why I'm really confused as to what he's saying.
Right before Christmas. And yes, Blair has the power to set the foreclosure sale.
No, she doesn't. Only the trustee does. If this is a deed of trust, this was exactly what it sounds like, she does not have the power to set the foreclosure sale. Only the trustee does. And basically it's 90 days. And then, so he would miss his payment. He would get a notice of 90 days from the trustee. And then after that, there would be 21 additional days where he has a little bit extra chance to pay this off before it forces the sale. The big difference between this and a standard foreclosure, though, is this doesn't have to go through the court system. So it's a lot faster than, going back and forth between courts with a regular foreclosure with the bank, which is probably what Oz should have stuck with. But there's no way that she could have forced the sale of the house if this is a standard deed of trust, which this is what it sounds like, because that would be the only way, because obviously what happened is Oz was getting behind on his payments to the house, and the bank wasn't going to let him basically remortgage the house. Basically, he was stuck. So the bank was probably threatening foreclosure on Oz. Well, the way around that is a deed of trust. So you pay back, but the problem here is Oz would then need to still be paying the bank plus Blair at the same time. So the other option is they took a deed of trust on the total value of the house, which means the house is actually a lot less than a lot of people think. So maybe this house was only a $250,000 house. It probably wasn't a $180,000 house based off square footage and where it's located, because the average price of a house in Colorado Springs, where the house is located, is around $450,000 right now. Back in 2020, it was probably around $410,000, give or take, maybe a little less. But if it's a brand new house in a gated community, which I guess it was according to a lot of people, it's probably easily $375,000. Maybe a little lower. So I assume the deed of trust was only for a certain amount of money, but the problem is that would still require Oz to be paying the house payment to the bank plus this deed of trust. So it's a little different. So it really depends on how the deed of trust was structured. But basically, the trustee is the middleman between that and the bank.
This situation was a fear and hesitation that I had from the beginning, even telling Wonder as far back as...
No, that's the thing. So when he signed that contract, he obviously had no idea what he was signing, because she didn't have the power to evict him. Whoever that trustee was did, though. But she couldn't have been the trustee. That would have never worked. You can't do that with a deed of trust. It's 3 parties automatically. Okay, I guess the only other option is this isn't a deed of trust, and I went on that tangent for no reason. But it sounds exactly like a deed of trust.
Because April, a day before my thread went up, that I was mortified that if I spoke out against Blair or even dared to cross her, that she would retaliate with taking my home from me. When I did speak out, as many of you are aware, Blair sent me a cease and desist. A cease and desist, by the way, over a Twitter...
Okay, yeah, she can send you a cease and desist, but she can't... Okay.
...thread which she apologized for not only in her video, but as well as privately. Despite this, I persisted on working on my video, continuing the production of something which started as 20 pages, then slowly grew into the novel that it's become.
I mean... playing devil's advocate here, if I was Blair, I would do everything in my literal power to stop that video. Even bribing Oz at this point, effectively, because you can effectively buy a story. Think of it like journalism. You can buy a story to never have it published, right? You would buy the rights to the story. So she could buy the rights to the story from Oz, and that would be fine.
Throughout this entire process, I had the fear that once I released this video, Blair would drop the hammer on me. I've lived the last 4 months of my life with the looming threat of Blair's retaliation. And truth being, from my understanding, she could have done this as early as June.
Okay, does that mean... So... That means Oz was behind on payments to the trustee as early as May, because you have 30 days, then 90 days, then 21 days in most states. So, and she couldn't have forced the foreclosure. She would have had to have forced the 90 days. 21 days, it's forced to be in the a publication of some kind. You have to have it saying this is going to be forced at auction at a foreclosure sale for 21 days, which you still have 21 days to finish the cure point. Oz either is leaving a lot of stuff out from this video, or he has no idea what he's talking about with the for the deed of trust, and there's something wrong here. By the way, this is not an example of financial abuse. This is a safety net for all parties involved. The financial abuse that Blair probably did was before any of this stuff was signed, because after that, Blair is not in control of how it works. In fact, he probably wouldn't even be giving money directly to Blair. He'd be giving money to the trustee instead, and then that would go out from there.
As to why Blair waited so long, I'm honestly unsure. To me, it feels like Blair is taking every course of action that she can to prevent this video from being produced. I
mean, that's smart. Think about it this way. For a lot of people, for a lot of YouTubers, public opinion is the only thing that matters, not actual legal things.
Legal threats to trying to take my home, which wouldn't be surprising, considering Blair's alleged white-collar crimes I intend to expose with evidence within my video.
Okay, you shouldn't have said that. You should have just done it and not actually said that out loud. Because now that just made this even harder for you. White-collar crimes. Okay, so likely embezzlement would be the big one. So she'd have to be embezzling from her own company. Would that get her in a lot of trouble? It probably actually wouldn't give her a criminal case in this case if it was from her own company. In most cases, there'd be a massive fine from like the IRS potentially, but there's a pretty decent chance it wouldn't actually have any major effect on her in like putting her in jail or anything. It's a little bit different when it's your own company. It is still bad, but it's also more of a problem if you're embezzling from your own company with insurance. But it just depends on the aspect here.
Before any of this, however, I am taking the proper legal channels and speaking with the right people to elevate this down the needed path.
That's the main thing.
Because of this, it would be unwise of me to reveal further information.
Okay, good. You probably shouldn't have made this video. I'm just saying.
I can only assume this is one of the reasons Blair is so determined to shut down my video's production. And to repeat myself from earlier.
Well, yeah, she's a bully, obviously.
Every word that I speak within this update is with the explicit understanding that this video may end up on the floor of a courtroom.
I still think that's risky. I think this video would be good enough, but you don't want to put that out. If he makes a 3-hour video and puts it out, that would be incredible. I mean, yeah, it sure would be a lot of fun fodder for the internet people, but I don't know. Defamation is hard to prove in a lot of ways, but if you have video evidence, and by the way, defamation's interesting. You can still prove defamation sometimes, even if something's true. Most of the time it has to be fake, but it really depends on how it works. So, and I'm not talking about like Korean law, because South Korea, and lots of places in Japan are a whole different category. Even if it's 100% true and obviously provable, you can still be sued over there.
In order for me to fight this,
Less of
regular
an issue
production
here.
of my content is needed to help fund the production of this said video. The reason why I'm making this update is so it's understood that I'm not just ignoring my obligations and responsibilities and suddenly hiding behind a flurry of videos in hopes that people will one day forget. The reason why this video has taken so much time as it has is not only am I a one-man team producing this, but I'm also continually uncovering more segments to the story and hearing more and more voices
And potentially still continually being harassed by Blair in the background.
that come forward to speak their side of things. Interviews, questionnaires, screenshots, the works. All from a number of individuals. During this process, the video will continue to remain under production. I'm not stopping this because of her retaliation. While she did successfully give me pause, I do fully intend to complete this video.
I'd honestly be surprised if this video ever releases. It's likely gonna get bought and squashed because there's this thing that's bugging me with this potential loan that he took. There's a good chance there's not enough equity in his house to cover it. So if the sale was forced, he would effectively be bankrupt. Because there's probably a bunch of other loans he has, like via the car. The example would be that stupid BMW for Wonder. Wonder was only going to be required to pay back $14,200 of it, and apparently the final sale of that car was like $63,000, which puts Blair and Oz on the hook for it. And she could just stop paying it and force him to, because obviously she doesn't care about her credit. And he cares, so it would force him to pay for it. So that's $40,000 extra down the hole. And there's a pretty good chance that Oz didn't put down the full 20%. It's probably between 7 and 15% of a down payment, which means there's a lot less equity in this house than people might think. Now, the only thing that would help here is if the equity of his house was, let's say he bought it for $300,000, and the equity of the house now says his house is valued at $600,000. Yeah, he still has that equitable title, which is great. Which means, for instance, Blair can't. Let's say the house is forced into sale. Blair does not earn the extra money from that. Okay, so she would get her $180,000 or whatever the heck the loan was. But she wouldn't get the increase. Only Oz would benefit from the increase from that title. So she has the legal title, and he has the equitable title, and that's the big difference there for that. That's a lot of reasons why a lot of people do this type of deals, because you get a huge cash injection right off the bat, but you don't have to deal with the court system. But the downside is you don't have to deal with the court system if something goes wrong. It just bypasses the court system in most cases, which means you don't have those protections in place. So there's that.
Now, let's talk about how Blair is even able to foreclose on me. What put her in a position of power beyond a landlord? A mortgagee, which in my...
No, she's not a mortgagee. She can't be a mortgagee. That can't... The only places that can be mortgagees are like banks. Loan companies, technically, but... There's no way. It's very rare for a single individual to be a mortgagee. But a bank would be a mortgagee.
My eyes is something even worse. As a quick note, Blair's name is not on any of the original documents related to my home.
Okay. Then she can't be a mortgagee. This has to be a deed of this has to be a deed of trust. It has to be. Which still means she's not a mortgagee, though. She's just the lender. She's the money, okay? The trustee is the one that controls the... Oh, my God. I swear to God. I can totally get where Oz had no idea what the heck he was signing, because he still doesn't seem to know.
I'm providing all of this information to give full context to the GoFundMe as I...
Doesn't have anything
feel it's more than deserved, as honestly, I would feel guilty as hell putting the video on pause shortly after it hit its funding goal, followed by me just continuing to upload regular content without warning. More details will of course.
Okay, so he had a GoFundMe that earned enough money to help him secure the cure for the loan. Okay, great. And then I guess someone else said he also had a like a live stream that made $32,000 in like 6 hours. Nice, good donations. A lot of people love Oz, obviously. More people probably hate donated against Blair.
Course follow with the main video, as I do not have time to fully expand on everything. As I briefly stated previously, Blair and I dated. We started when I was 20 and she was 28.
Yeah, that's not ideal. There's a massive difference in maturity levels, especially with guys at the age of 20. I mean, 26, let's see here, maybe. But I think the biggest thing that Oz was making a lot of money, but he didn't bother to learn any financial anything. Now, to be fair, like for instance, a lot of people will be like, blame the parents. But the problem with that is maybe the parents are renters and they would never have to deal with this in the first place. So they may not know. They could have had a house, but they could have also bought outright in cash. And they could have also bought a house straight from the bank and just never missed a payment and never had to deal with the deed of trust. Now, he should have automatically called his parents and asking about it, or at the very least gone on YouTube and typed, what is a deed of trust? There's at least 20 probably 6-minute videos telling you this. And it explains how these work. Man, this is bugging
Currently,
me.
I'm 23, almost 24.
Okay.
In the beginning, Blair walked me into several poor financial decisions. My naivety caused me to believe her reassurances that I could handle all of the...
I want to know if the house was the poor financial decision, because that would actually probably have been the best decision. And then after that, the poor ones would be buying all those cars. Those would be poor financial decisions. The house probably wasn't a poor financial decision, but those extra cars were, because I know Blair had a BMW. I know Oz apparently had a BMW, and then they both co-signed on another BMW, which apparently were all brand new. So you're looking at an extra $120,000 in debt.
Financial obligations being dropped onto my shoulders by someone
credit
more experienced in life than I was. Why these obligations were placed onto me? At the time, Blair had bad credit.
Yeah, okay. Once someone has bad credit, guess what? You don't. If you go in knowing someone has bad credit, so I want to know if Oz knew she had bad credit, okay? And he obviously had good credit because he was able to get a house. I want to know why it didn't cross his mind to realize that any money you give someone with bad credit or way worse credit than you, so if Blair is at like 500 or less, then whatever money you give her is a gift because you're never getting it back. That is normal. Because if the banks refuse to give money to her, then there's a reason. So, yeah, he was definitely... Fine, I won't call him an idiot, okay? I will call him incredibly naive. Now, I consider both those words the same, but a lot of people don't. So I'm going to say naive. He was incredibly naive. And I can't 100% blame him for this because our own school systems don't teach basic financial anything at any point all the way through high school. So... I mean, I could see a lot of people falling into this trap, honestly.
So all of the purchases, loans, everything was being placed in my name. This included the car that she purchased, then revoked from Wonderstruck. I was on the...
Okay. Well, I mean, if both their names were on that, then yeah, you're a co-signer, but that just means you guys should just let Wonder keep paying for it.
Loan as a co-signer only because of my credit at the time. Eventually, though, the financial responsibilities that I incurred would stack up on me, building a mountain of monthly debt that would lead me into several financially tight months and eventually just breaking.
Okay, so this is before the before the title transfer took place, before there was a deed of trust. And I'm still calling this a deed of trust because this is the only thing that makes sense. It has to be a deed of trust. Because there would be no other legal contract that would allow her to foreclose on the house. And it's not even her. It's going to be the trustee, whoever the heck that is.
This would lead me to asking Blair, my partner for financial help for things such as my home, which she was living in.
Gate, you should have been charging her rent. You should have been charging her rent, especially knowing that you knew she made a ton more than you.
Help from my partner, who at any given time would be making up to 30 times my monthly income.
Yeah, charge her rent. I mean, she's still not obligated necessarily to pay you unless if you don't charge her rent. It doesn't matter if she was making 1,000 times your income. It's not her responsibility. It's your house. The problem here is she doesn't have any equity in this house. Only Oz had equity in the house. And that's where I have I'm a little bit more critical of Oz here, because even, let's say she was paying for, were you going to put her name on the deed originally? And I'm not talking about what's coming up with, I assume to be this title transfer, right? Were you going to put her on the deed to your house to let her build equity in your house? If the answer is no, then the answer is you charge her rent, because she's not going to give you money towards your mortgage because only you'll earn that equity. That doesn't make any sense. No one should do that. So she shouldn't be helping you if she's not getting anything out of it, at least from a equity standpoint. Okay, that would be really dumb if you posted this on a Reddit thread with no context and no names involved. People would be calling. People would be saying to Blair, "Don't do it. That's stupid." But you should have charged her rent, which would have been a whole different scenario. And then she could have been like, well, I don't want to pay rent to you. And then you would be like, okay, cool, go get an apartment, and we'll be, boyfriend, girlfriend at 2 different locations. And that would have been fine. Or she would have broken up with you. Who cares at that point? But something's not making sense with that either.
These amounts of assistance would be added to a ledger of debt. And I want to clarify.
Okay, so basically here is where he asked her for money and she loaned it to him, okay? That's what she did. She just loaned him money. And I assume she wrote it down somewhere, okay? So it was, at first these were loans that were just word of mouth loans, okay? This was not a contract. So this has nothing to do with the contract he signed. So she can't foreclose while these loans were building up, okay? So he kept asking her for money to help pay when he should have just been like, hey, I need your rent money for the end of the month. That was what he should have done.
Again, Blair wasn't my bank. She wasn't my landlord. She was my partner at this time. Right. This ledger also includes things such as a non-refundable design fee and land deposit on a
Okay, that's stupid.
multi-million-dollar custom
Okay, that's stupid. I don't know what the hell that is.
Home that she threatened to break up with me if I didn't agree to proceed on this with.
Then break up with her. Okay, so this is where a lot of people are saying there's financial abuse. Yeah, this is probably financial abuse right here. Or not even probably. This absolutely is financial abuse right here. But having that ledger is not necessarily financial abuse, because he was asking for loans from her. And they weren't necessarily legal. They were just word of mouth loans. It's like taking a loan from your family, okay, at this point. Aside from that weird multi-million-dollar thing, that alone is financial abuse. But him asking her for loans is not financial abuse. That's her, just not losing money. And I assume she told him that it was a loan, right? So if she didn't tell him it was a loan, then that's different. But if she did tell him it was a loan, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll pay you back, then this is a moot point here.
With her, as well as other financial expenses that I honestly can't account for.
Okay, well, Oz, were you keeping track of what you owed her? If you weren't, and she was, and you guys couldn't match your books together, there's something wrong here. You should have been keeping track of what you borrowed from her. So I don't know if he borrowed more than he's letting on or realized, or if she made up transactions. Could she have made up transactions? Yeah, absolutely. But if she knew he wasn't also keeping track of it, that's still his fault.
Nor even come close to this number when digging through my own finances. This ledger would creep into the range of $180,000.
Jeez.
An insurmountable amount where I don't even understand how she got there.
Okay. So the problem here is apparently Oz wasn't keeping a ledger either, so he couldn't refute this.
That number ballooned higher and higher, the number ever increasing, and I never...
So, question. There's a good chance that she was charging interest on these things. While not wouldn't necessarily be legal-ish, the problem is, I mean, it's still a word-of-mouth loan, it sounds like, at this point. So she's just like, oh, yeah, you owe me $180,000, by the way. But if she's the only one with the books and he didn't bother to create any records, who's to say it's not 180,000? It could have easily been 50,000. Okay. And he just had no idea how it got there. And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to tack on $130,000 here. Who won't notice it? He didn't write any of his stuff down. Well, she would have to prove it. So basically, she could take him to court and then sue him for the missing money, but she would have to prove every transaction. At least up until the point where Oz signed a contract saying that he owed her $180,000. So there's that.
Question it out of guilt for needing help. Guilt from her telling everyone, from her friends to my friends, to her employees, to hell, even her Discord staff, about my finances.
Okay, so this is where the financial abuse is happening. Okay, so yeah. So basically what she's doing is she's bringing in a ton of third parties to basically shame him. I know what's going on now. Okay, that's where a lot of people were saying he was being financially abused. See, this wasn't in some of the videos I watched, okay? It was kind of skipped around. I just knew some of the details, but... So yeah, okay, fine. He was being financially abused within this sphere right here, okay? Great. Oh, well, not great for him, but great in the fact that I actually understand what the heck half of you guys are talking about now.
Oftentimes unprompted. Guilt involving the fact that everyone I interacted with on a day-to-day basis looked down on me for her words towards me. My own partner, the person who was supposed...
Yeah, a lot of people at this point won't then go reach out to family for extra help because, you know, they already feel like shit because their main partner is telling them that they're basically a burden.
Supposed to be my other half was actively putting me in a position where she was chipping away at my mental health. I was afraid to tell anyone what was happening because she had convinced me that I was a parasite.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a financial abuse right there. But there's still something that's bugging me about that foreclosure thing. So this, as of right now, it's all a word of mouth loan. That Oz isn't even sure it's $100,000 or $180,000. He just thinks it is.
That I avoided telling anyone who could have helped me see what was happening out of fear of further confirmation.
It probably would have been better just to go into bankruptcy, honestly. And it would have sucked. He would have had a shitty time, you know, renting for a few years from really messed up apartments. But he could have kept his channel. He probably would have made a lot more money. A foreclosure is not the worst thing in the world, but it probably would have been the best thing for him, even if it's actually, you know, not ideal. Because unfortunately, owing someone else money is, especially when it's not a normal contract loan, it feels like Illuminati's like a loan shark right here. Because that's kind of how this loan felt like it was structured, all these word of mouth loans. So,
Or eyes looking down on me. Something to note, when you're around Blair, your world revolves around her.
Yeah, because if you don't do what she says, she's going to break up with you. She uses money as a bargaining chip. Yeah, there are definitely people like that.
In my case, my home was hers, despite her name not being on it. I had no friends out in Colorado, a state that I moved to at the...
I want to know how her home could be hers, yours, because her name isn't on it.
Behest of Blair. Only Blair's friends were out here.
Okay, when you moved out there, you should have got an apartment, not a house. I mean, unless you were swimming in money from YouTube.
All of my connections had to be approved by her. I wasn't allowed to be friends with people she didn't like, such as Click in One Topic, or even Wonder, once that bridge was burned in...
Yeah, lots of people do that. Okay, okay. So there was definitely abuse here going on. That still doesn't 100% absolve Oz here of taking out all these loans. There is every real chance he owes her 180 grand.
Reduced to cinders. I was even in a position where my finances were nearly entirely controlled by her, from what debts I took on to later being the fact that she was the person who signed my paychecks.
Okay, but did you have more than one job?
All while my world was painted to me in a light where I should be grateful for her generosity.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see what she was doing. All right, I get it now. Okay.
It wasn't until recently when I explained my situation to my parents,
And they're like, what? Okay.
friends outside of Blair's control, that I began to understand just how perverse my life had become for nearly 3 years. And I want to add, I tried to pay Blair back in any way that I could, by the way.
Okay, so maybe he did have more than one job.
I felt indentured to her by this debt she had hanging over my head. Hell, I even took a position in her company at a lower pay to try and pay this debt back.
Okay, so it sounds like he did potentially have multiple jobs. It wasn't very worded right.
Offered to work with her in her crypto farm for free to pay back the debt.
Well, why would you offer to work for free? You should. Okay, so he was offering. You should offer like removal. Okay, I don't get that.
Anything that I could to try and make myself feel useful. While I worked for Blair's company, I helped improve it in any way that I could with my knowledge of how YouTube worked. I was able to assist in the push for Blair's channel to make the sudden and stark rise into a new payout range of 6 figures a month.
Okay, so here's the thing about that. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Oz. Let's say Blair was making $25,000 a month, right? Or we'll say 50,000. That's probably more accurate. All right. And then Oz used his expertise to push it into the $125,000 range. Well, that's good for the company or for Blair, but that doesn't increase Oz's payment in any way. That's not how most companies work. If you invent something at a company and the company owns the trademark, well, guess what? You still get your same salary every single month, and the company makes the $20 million bonus. That's how companies work. It doesn't matter that he increased her income. He didn't increase his own income via his own channel at this point. And maybe Blair was, forcing him not to work on his channel, but I figured she'd want his money or her money back at some point. Because, okay.
All while I was being paid not even enough to get by with my monthly bill.
But you agreed to that payment. That's the problem. You agreed to that salary. You can't just get in. So let's say he pushes the income of her channel to $125,000. He is not entitled to an increase to say $5,000 a month. That's just the fact that he was hired to do a specific job, and it turned out well for Blair. But he agreed to the $2,500 or whatever it was, $2,600 a month. He agreed to that. It doesn't entitle him to a $5,000 a month raise or anything just because he pushes her channel up into 6 digits. That's not how this works. If that's how it worked, a lot more people would have a lot more lawsuits against companies, which would have, which would work. But that's not how this works.
And Blair was very aware of my finances.
Well, yeah, of course she was aware. You owed her 180 grand. But the problem here is, you agreed to work for a salary for her, and she's not obligated to continuously give you raises on that, regardless of how well you're making her channel. That's just the truth. I'm sorry. It's not nice. It's not good to hear, but that is the truth of this matter.
I sacrificed a lot of my time to try and recoup this debt while also trying to help save her channel. Because in 2021, due to personal and private reasons expressed to me by Blair, this would lead me to up and almost entirely abandon my channel.
That was a mistake. I don't know what she did, but that was an absolute mistake. You needed your income from that channel on top of her channel. I don't know what the hell she told you, but that was the dumbest thing ever. And if she was doing this to manipulate you so you would basically be a slave your entire life, well, she succeeded. Because You needed the extra money at this point. Why would you do this? And this is the financial abuse part, right? This is where she was using her mental manipulation, etc. on him. And yeah, I totally get that. But I'm coming at this just from a practical standpoint. He needed as much money as possible to pay this stuff back, and he should have been taking every single job. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it was. You know, working YouTube for her channel, and then working at McDonald's at night, or whatever. I mean, or McDonald's in California where you get $20 an hour. But I'm just saying he should have had an extra job on top of that, or at least been working content, 20 hours a day at this point. That just, and maybe had another reaction channel or not reaction channel. Sorry, reaction channels don't make money. Just any other channel, multiple channels. He could have been working on a how not to do finance channel. I don't understand how many hours he was working for Blair. Was that ever specifically mentioned? Because it doesn't seem like it. So if he was working 80 hours a week for Blair and then 20 hours a week on his channel, yeah, that'd be a whole different problem here. But it just sounds like he was working, maybe like 30 hours a week for Blair. And then, for whatever reason, he wasn't working on his channel at all. And then he wasn't having another job outside the house. He could have been driving for Uber. He had a BMW. A lot of people love that car. He could be a Uber comfort driver at that point. He needed the money, so why wasn't he attempting to get other positions, is what I'm asking.
Throughout the year of 2022. More of this story later, because there are more pieces. But this led to the end of 2022, where Blair would take advantage of not only my financial strife, but both my legal and financial illiteracy in December of that year.
Okay.
When I was 23 and Blair was nearly 31, Blair, with her lawyer, would create an honestly quite confusing legal document for me to sign where I would agree to pay back her debt.
Okay, so the $180,000 that he took. Okay. That makes sense, right? Because at this point, she really wanted the money back, and she was basically tired of it. Okay, I don't particularly care. The fact is, it made it to the $180,000 mark, and for whatever reason, Oz is going to agree to pay this back, even though he doesn't have records himself of it making it this far. Okay, so that's the first mistake.
Blair, being the person who signed my checks, knew that I couldn't afford legal representation. Blair also knew that the $2,500 that she...
Okay, I need to know if this is a deed of trust contract, because if it is a deed of trust contract, most trustees will offer a third-party lawyer for free in most cases.
She was having me pay monthly towards that debt was almost as much as I was making monthly working for her. This would mean that I could barely pay for anything else.
Okay, so you were working for her for 25. So let's say the debt is $2,500 a month. Okay, great. She's paying you at least that much. Where is your second job? I want to know where the extra income's coming from. Because if you're not doing another job, then I mean, obviously she's only going to pay you let's say she's paying you $2,600 and your debt $2,500 to her. Okay, you owe her the $2,500 a month, and then your second job at Walmart pays you for the rest of your bills. You don't just sit there and do one job. You do 2 jobs or 3 jobs. It will suck until that is paid off, but that's what you got to do.
Else in my life other than the debt that I owed her. Everything I made working for her was going right back into her pocket.
Yeah, I get that. But where are your jobs outside of her?
Blair would bring me to her lawyer's office, put me in a room alone with the 2 of them, with papers in front of me.
Okay.
Papers which I foolishly signed for a myriad of reasons, ranging from Blair expressing that this would mend our relationship.
Well, that would never happen. That never happens regardless.
That it was the right thing for me to do. That this would also...
Right thing? I mean... So the problem here is up until this point, it was just a word of mouth loan, probably. If he had never signed it, he could have just been like, I never took that money out, and technically maybe gotten away with some of it.
Also protect her legally and prevent her from getting into trouble with the IRS.
She took the loan out of her company and gave it to him as cash. So basically she was giving him this money before taxes, most likely. Yeah, that's not good on her end.
Also would describe to me, and while I can't remember if this exact word was ever used, she essentially explained to me that because she used company funds to assist me, that she had committed embezzlement.
Maybe. It's hard to say if that's actually accurate. Even if you can prove it's accurate in a way, it would mainly be a massive fine. It'd be kind of like it wouldn't be a criminal trial. If it went to court, it would be more of a civil problem in this case,
And
because it wouldn't be against a lot of employees or a major corporation with insurance or anything like that. It'd be like a personal loss, effectively.
by converting the amount that I owed her into a loan with her company, this would save her skin legally. Now, to most people, that word
Okay, so it was converted into a loan with her company. Now, here's the thing: Blair or Blair's company would be the beneficiary. Okay, but, and this is big, they could also not be the trustee. Okay, Blair's company could not be a beneficiary or the lender and the trustee. There's a third party that runs this thing. All right, and it's not them. So it's not. That's not how. Okay, this has to be a deed of trust.
may not have a lot of meaning. But to me, when I was 11, my mother was incarcerated for this exact crime, a remnant of the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah, but that was probably against a major company. There's a big difference when you embezzle from a company versus like a private company in a lot of ways. You can still go to prison. You absolutely can. But, I mean, it's less likely in a small company that you'll actually hit prison time for that, and more likely in a big company if you work, say, for Google.
This taught me a very harsh lesson from an early age. But more importantly, Blair was aware of this past of mine. Whether this was used against me, I can't say.
It's unlikely that it was. It's more likely that Blair had no idea what the heck she was doing when she was loaning the money out this way, and she was just stupid as shit. It's the legal term for it, but it's more likely she didn't do it on purpose, and it became that, and her lawyer was like, what the heck are you doing? You're an idiot.
But the idea of another person I loved being locked away, but this time for my actions?
No, this was not your actions. This was obviously her actions, and she probably wouldn't have been locked away. It would just been a massive fine to the IRS.
Words cannot describe the guilt that I had. As I briefly...
So, I mean, the fact that she mentioned that and didn't explain it to you is... So, yeah, she's an asshole for that. I'll give her that.
Blair used this debt as a promise that this would specifically help mend our relationship.
Okay, that was a lie, obviously.
Not our friendship, and put us on a better foot. It wouldn't be until a few weeks after signing that document that I would learn that she had already moved on.
Oh, she already broke up with him. Okay.
And had almost everyone in my daily life keep this fact a secret from me. Blair used all of this. Promises of reconciliation.
Why would she be dumb enough to tell anyone? Okay, never
And
mind.
other factors, which will soon be further elaborated on, as means to get me to sign a document known as a deed of trust.
Yeah, I knew it. It's a deed of trust. Okay. All right. Okay. I want to see what he has to say because I'm pretty sure he's going to be wrong.
I wasn't aware of the power that this document held, what it does, what it allowed her to do.
It didn't allow her to do anything. Okay. No. That's not how deeds of trust work. All right? She loaned you the $180,000. All right? Or her company did. It doesn't matter. Either her or her company loaned it to you. The title company controls those funds and divvies it out to the bank or wherever it needs to go, basically. Okay? Basically, you get that money, and then you pay the trustee, and the trustee pays the beneficiary / potentially the bank, depending on how it works for this trust or for this deed of trust. All right? Blair gets one title, but Oz got another title. Okay? Blair gets the legal title, which is the one that controls the house itself. But he gets the equitable title, so he doesn't lose the equity that's going into the house, no matter what. Okay, and this is where I think Oz just didn't get it. But the moment he misses a $2,500 payment, she does not have an option to foreclose. only the trustee can force the foreclosure. She can't do anything about it. She could request the trustee to do it, but it doesn't matter. The trustee or the title company, which is probably what it was in this case, forces the foreclosure on their own terms. He has 90 days to obtain a cure for it, to pause the foreclosure. And if he doesn't, and by the way, he has to be 30 days late in the first place. So he has to be 30 days late, and then 90 days, and then 21 days. So 30 days late the first time, he gets a notice. That notice is for 90 days. He has 90 days to pay up all he owes, plus a tiny little fee. It's not a huge percentage fee. Now, if he owes $12,000, the percentage is going to be a big chunk of that, but or higher, right? So, he was already behind. He missed the 30 days, and the trustee is trying to force the sale. This has nothing to do with Blair. Blair has no choice. Blair could have been hit by a truck, and the trustee could have still forced the sale. Okay, it wouldn't have mattered. That's not how it works. The trustee is the one they're the third party that manages this thing. It's so the lender and the borrower don't discuss anything with each other. She can't do anything about that, okay? And that's where a lot of people are probably screwing this up, because this is not like a normal mortgage and mortgagee kind of situation, all right? There's three parties involved, and it's a huge difference.
Again, I couldn't afford legal representation. She knew this. This document,
oddly enough, it was actually probably the safest option for all the parties involved. He couldn't afford. The bank was never going to give him another loan. Is what was going on here. He had two options. He did this, or he foreclosed on the house through the bank. Now, he should have done through the bank, because what would have happened here is the banks are a lot slower, and they have to go through the court system, which means you have a lot more chances to pay that back. But the problem is, the way a deed of trust works is it allows you to pay back loans that are not just your house. So if he owed, say, $50,000 for the cars, you can rope your house in as the mortgage collateral, which is probably what he had to do. Because otherwise then he would be sued for other things while his house was also going into foreclosure. But the deed of trust basically protects Blair, but it also protects Oz, because Blair can't harass him for it. Only the third party can deal with that.
Gave her the power to foreclose if I was unable to make a monthly payment of nearly $2,500 for nearly a decade.
Yeah, but this is not Blair. Blair has no power to foreclose on you. This is only the trustee.
Blair knew that even with my income working for her, that this wasn't possible.
Then get another job. Why didn't you get another job? It doesn't matter. She gave you a loan. She told you how much it was going to be for, and you go and get a second and third job to pay it back. How is that hard to understand?
So, it feels as though she knew.
Especially after she broke up. That means you were free. You were free to go get multiple jobs.
Knew that I would be destined to fall behind. That this outcome was inevitable.
No, it's likely the trustee and title company forced a minimum. They probably forced a minimum is what happened here.
Home is foreclosed, or if I decide to sell, Blair gets an immediate payout. And it's because of the...
Well, yeah, because she put the money up front, all right? So what happens is if this home goes into foreclosure and does sell, so Oz, let's say he couldn't cure it, right? Well, guess what? She gets paid the instant $180,000, assuming that's how much money they get back minus the mortgage to the bank, right? So let's say she gets the $180,000. Anything after that, Oz gets back because it's his equity. That's what his equitable title covers. She only gets the initial amount that she loaned. She does not get any extra. She doesn't get any. But she could lose money. So, for instance, if the house doesn't have enough equity in it and it sells, she could easily lose $80,000 and have no recourse. So, I mean, most of the time they want people, especially, let's say Oz only put $40,000 into the house. That means unless the house had gained enough value over those 2 years, which it might have because of how COVID prices were working, unless it gained enough value, she would be losing money, so she would have forced a renegotiation of the terms around day 80. Now, here's the thing, though. Even if she wanted to do a renegotiation of the terms, the trustee could force the sale regardless. Even if Blair didn't want to have the sale go through and Oz didn't want the sale to go through, the trustee can force the sale regardless of what anyone else wants. And that's why the third-party thing is in place. It protects both sides, but it also forces a sale if the trustee doesn't believe anything equal will come out of this.
That I'm hesitant to take the easy way out. There's also the fact that there's just not enough equity in the home.
Yeah.
That if
that's what would happen.
This were to foreclose upon, Blair would still be out money.
Yep.
And she could then sue me further.
That's hard to say. She could, but all Oz would need to do is declare bankruptcy, and Blair would just be out the money. That's it. That's all. That's the only thing that would need to happen, because obviously at that point Oz would have nothing, and it would be probably the best way to do it. But when Oz is saying that she has the power to foreclose, that's absolutely wrong.
To get that money back. If you're looking for an easy point of evidence, as you can see with Wonder, Blair has a habit of taking advantage of younger men. 8 years.
Yeah, I'll agree to that. I'm just saying that that Oz has no idea how a deed of trust works.
Younger than her, and their financial illiteracy for her own personal gain.
Okay, fair. Thank you for telling me you're financially illiterate.
Originally, I assumed that I would have the video produced by now, but unfortunately, I overestimated my abilities and also had to deal with the legal and financial stress, which...
To be fair, I'm sure about 80% of the people who watched this video have no idea what a deed of trust is either.
Followed. It's obvious to me that I need to focus on myself and not destroy my well-being for this video. This, of course, leads me to the GoFundMe. Not a penny of what has been raised will be used to repay Blair. I will be using the aid given for legal fees and only necessary expenses. The purpose is to aid me in...
Okay, so the GoFundMe is for the legal stuff, and then the donations for he did like a stream or something that made $32,000. That went towards helping the cure, basically the 90-day cure.
Potentially breaking out of what I can only call a manipulative situation with several lanes of legal red tape in front of me. This money will be used to secure a legal retainer and any legal cost, and once and only once the legal front is secured, will I use the funding to help with monthly finances related to securing my home. Finances which are not tied to Blair in any way. I also want to add that I'm not trying to escape any debt that I may rightfully owe Blair.
Great. I just really wish that you had kept a ledger yourself so you could at least refuted it.
I just don't want to fucking lose my home.
The problem, though, is he's so convinced that it's Blair foreclosing on him, and it's probably not. Well, it's not probably not. She doesn't have the power to foreclose on him. Only the trustee does, which is the title company.
Or lose it from retaliation.
She can't. She can't force it because she hates you, okay? She can't do that. It's only the trustee. This just is probably a coincidence of time because you failed to pay the $2,500 a month multiple times in a row.
For further future transparency, I intend to provide updates with my GoFundMe, which will include progress updates and invoices when applicable. I intend to be as transparent as I legally can throughout all of this. And of course, I wanted to thank everyone for their patience with me. And I felt that this update was more than deserved for everyone who's been here so far. Thank you all. Also, she took the furniture.
Okay. I wonder if he owned the furniture, because that would be that's way worse. Okay. Is Blair a bitch? Allegedly. Probably. Did she attempt to foreclose on his house? No. I can say that with 99% certainty that she can't force the foreclosure, or she couldn't force the foreclosure even if she had wanted to and hated him. She could say it to him because apparently she knew he was illiterate when it comes to finances. But that's not how it works. All right? And I'm sure a lot of people will get mad at me in this, and that's fine. But a deed of trust is a three-party system. and it is not like a standard mortgage. The only main problem with the deed of trust is that once the failure goes through and you fail the 90 days plus the 30 plus the 21 and the house sells, it doesn't have to go through a court system. It bypasses that whole thing, which is not great for a lot of people who are financially struggling. It's great for other people, who have no problems paying it. But, there's a lot of missing things with what Oz is saying. And I don't care how much Blair hates Oz, she can't retaliate to foreclose on him. That's just not how it works. And you don't even have to listen to me. You can go and Google what a deed of trust is. It takes go on YouTube and type, explain a deed of trust to me, okay? There are plenty of videos. They're like 6 minutes long. They'll tell you exactly what I've been telling you guys that a deed of trust is, and that she had no way to force a foreclosure. That's just not how it works. She was basically money bags, and then the trustee is the title company, and they're the ones they're the middlemen, okay? They control everything. All right? It's basically so the lender cannot intimidate the borrower, okay? That's what it's for. All right? And she didn't technically own the title to his house. They both did. All right? They both own it, but she has the legal title which can force the sale, but he owns the equity title, which automatically transfers back into the legal title after the loan is paid. So it's also so the person who's loaning the money can't attempt to force the sale. It will basically freeze if they try to sell the house out from under you because they're holding the legal title. If they went on the Facebook Marketplace and they're like, "Hey, I'm selling this house for $300,000 in cash," what would happen is it would automatically freeze in the process because there's two titles. So, I understand where a lot of the financial abuse came from that a lot of people were telling me about, but a deed of trust is completely wrong from what he was saying, and probably from what a lot of other people were thinking. But there are a lot of checks and balances with that thing. But the biggest thing is the foreclosure. It could be forced on, but it wouldn't be her doing it. That's my last thing for this. This was an interesting video because I happen to know a lot about this. Yeah, I don't know. It was definitely interesting. I will keep up with some of the other Illuminati stuff. I think we're going to check out Mama Max soon. And once again, I'm a reaction channel. I am not going to go through hundreds of documents looking for things, okay? And you can tell me all the things I'm missing. Don't feel afraid to tell me all the things I'm missing in the comments, okay? That's totally fine. Even dislike it if you hate it, okay? But, yeah, that was an interesting video. All right. Have a good day, everyone.